doing Books&Lala's Buzzword Readathon this year, or at least I plan to. I wasn't going to, and then I saw Curious Cat planning her TBR around the different events this year. That really that really encouraged me to do it, because she had lots of great ideas and it got my brain whirring. So this is my January Buzzword vlog. If you're not aware of Books&Lala's Buzzword Readathon, so Books&Lala makes reading prompts for each month of the year that are about the current trends in publishing. And so she has one list that's about like trending words or themes in titles, and one that's about like cover art. And so I think I wasn't thinking about doing it because I'll be honest, like in my mind I was thinking, but surely I should just pick books that are interesting to me rather than having to pick them to fit into a prompt. But I as someone with a lot of books on my TBR, I can really struggle to figure out what I want to read, because there's just so much interesting stuff to read out there. So looking through finding books to fit this prompt, A, is really fun just as an activity on its own, and then B, like I feel like it's actually going to get me reading a book and enjoying a book quicker than me trying to decide what to read without having a prompt. And also because these prompts are about like what is kind of trending, popular trends at the moment, it's quite likely that the prompt will lead me to something that I want to read that is interesting to me currently, just like the books that I've found, which I will talk to you shortly. So yeah, I'm excited. It's not my first ever reading challenge that I've done. A couple of years ago I did the StoryGraph onboarding challenge, and yeah, that was fun, but I wasn't on BookTube yet at that point, so it was kind of just something I was doing on my own. I'm excited to do my first reading challenge that's documented on YouTube, BookTube. Do I think that I'm gonna stick to this all year? Oh, I hope so. Because it's just nice to complete something, isn't it? But I'm not holding myself to that. I think if it's fun, and if it continues to be fun, and I continue to have the energy and the good mental health, the good physical health, then I think I'll do it. And if I don't, then maybe I won't, and maybe I'll discuss why. But yeah, for the moment, I'm really optimistic and I'm really excited to read all these books and to try out the readathon. So books I'm going to read, I have cheekily already started, but it didn't go off to a great start. So I was scrolling through my library app for books that contain the words before or after, which is the Buzzword prompt, and I saw this book, Happily Never After, about the Disney villains. I thought, oh great, that sounds really interesting, but it turns out it's just like some art from the movies with like I don't know, a cheeky little ironic sort of greetings card thing next to it that's like obviously inspired by the character, but that book really felt like just a cash grab. So I did read it, and if you're really struggling to find something for the prompt, I mean, it's 20 pages long, so have at it. But yeah, I felt personally like it was a kind of waste of time. I'm thinking that I might just read multiple books in this vlog, because I have a few that are tempting me for before and after, a couple more. So the first one is After I Do by Jenkins Reid. I might be leaving Japan and my wife will be staying, and so like I'm really anxious and worried about that. And when I'm anxious and worried about something, I like to read about it, and I like to find books about it. And this book is about, I mean, I'm not reading this book thinking that it's going to be exactly like my relationship, of course, but this book is about a couple who become long distance after getting married. So kind of like mirrors my relationship maybe in that way. So that's why I'm intrigued by that one. And then the other book I'm thinking of reading is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Before the Coffee Gets Cold is a working translation from Japanese, and I feel like while I'm in Japan, I need to read all the Japanese literature that's on my radar or on my TBR. To read it in the country, I don't know, that just feels right while I have the chance. Yes, so those are the books that I'm thinking of reading for the before and after prompt. And then for the cover prompt, which is body parts internal, I had a look through my TBR on the StoryGraph, and the only thing, there were 2 books actually that would fit. Someone to Build a Nest In, which is a book that my friend is reading, or my friend recently read and recommended, which is like, it seems like a queer, like romance horror, and that's like a genre, a mix of genres that I haven't tried yet and sounds intriguing. So yes, that's an option. And then the other option I have is Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. This one intrigues me because it's about a basically like a forecaster, so somebody who is a statistician, I think, and their job is to predict the future, like predict how likely things are to happen. But then one day, like, all the impossible things happen and she loses her job. And so the reason that this book interests me is because like, I'm trying to figure out what to do with my career, and as I've been looking into like all the different options, like the role of forecasters or super forecasters, like, I didn't know that this existed before I was like doing this career exploration. And basically people use this data to make decisions about what to invest in the future, in terms of, well, if another pandemic is very likely to happen, or you know, nuclear war, or these kinds of things. What do we need to invest in? And so I'm wondering whether this book, Lucky Day, has some commentary on that. It might be a bit of a stretch, and I might be a little bit disappointed, I think, because it seems like a parody, it seems like comedy, and I don't know. But that's why I'm intrigued, anyway. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. That's 4 potential books, 2 for each prompt, and I'm gonna see how much I can fit in this vlog. I finished the first little section of After I Do, and I'm quite excited about it, actually, because I have been craving, in my like romance journey, I've been craving a story about a couple that's like actually that have been together for a long time. To see like a romance story that's about a couple that's already established. Now, I don't know if that's what this is, but I saw that this, when I added this to my StoryGraph, I saw that this book is logged as a contemporary romance, which makes me think that which I didn't know when I started the book, but that makes me think that the couple are going to be getting back together at the end. So I'm very intrigued. However, the husband does seem like a bit of an asshole, to be honest. So we start the book and it's basically like present day awful relationship vibes, each partner resenting the other, and then we get these little vignettes from the day they met and their first dates and getting married, and little vignettes up until the present day, and that's like the very beginning of the book. And now I'm back to the present day. So we got to see like the magic of we got to see them meet cute, the magic of meeting for the first time and how into each other they both were, and it's slowly kind of breaking down. So I know that in the blurb it said that they're going to be doing long distance, which is why I was kind of intrigued by the premise, intrigued to pick it up. So yeah, I haven't got to that part yet. Yeah, the main male character, the husband, I'm going to be really interested to see if there's a way that the book can kind of turn it around so that the reader is rooting for him, because I'm definitely not really rooting for him. He just seems very kind of selfish and not in tune with his wife's emotions, and I think both of them are not doing a great job of communicating. It's just like, it's not really clear like the resentment that they have for each other, other than that coming out and that being awful, but like, why is it coming out? Like, what is underneath that? So yeah, I'm really intrigued. This is my first Taylor Jenkins read. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo has been on my TBR since I started StoryGraph. It's like one of the first books on my TBR, so that was back in 2020. So I can't believe I'm picking this one that I hadn't even heard of before this challenge. But I do like her writing so far. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. So I'll check in maybe a bit later, maybe at the end, who can say. I've now finished After I Do by Jenkins Reid, and I have mixed feelings about it. So we're following Lauren and her husband Ryan, and their marriage has gone completely toxic and horrible, and they basically not communicating at all and just kind of communicating through passive aggressiveness. And so they decide to split up for a year and see whether they can learn to love each other again by being split up. This book, I totally understand why they split up, why they decided to have a year apart. But oh gosh, I just realised, is that going to be a spoiler? I'll put spoilers up just in case you don't want to know how it ends. Yes, so I totally understand why they broke up. However, I do not understand at all why they got back together. I guess I do understand a bit, because then in the book it talks about the relationship with the family, so it's not just her that's broken up with him, but also her family, and her family miss him. And I kind of understand that, like once someone's integrated into your family, there's basically like pushback from the family that they don't want to lose this guy from their family, right? And if he had done something terrible, then obviously that wouldn't be like a fact. Like, I wouldn't expect that to be a factor, but you know, it's just kind of gone a bit sour, and that is an interesting thing to think about. Like, does someone remain a part of the family through marriage even if they were to divorce? That's an interesting thing to think about, but I just didn't see it. I wasn't rooting for them to get back together. When they do get back together, the reason for them getting back together, I was like, that's it? That's it? That's all it took? Okay. He's dating someone else, right? And he makes a pasta dish for her on her birthday that he also made for the main character, his wife, only on her birthday. So he makes the dish for the new girl that he's dating, and she's just like, cool, nice, thanks. And then, you know, goes off to do whatever. It's not like it's the tastiest dish ever. It's not even described that way. And even if it were, okay, anyway. And he's like, and then I realised I needed to be with you, Lauren, my wife, because you understand the magic of my pasta. But like, I don't know. Like, I didn't connect to the characters that much in this story, but I did really love the concept, and I would really like to read a book that's like similar in concept but different author, or I don't know. In terms of like the author, I definitely would read more from Jenkins Reid, and I know that Atmosphere was a really popular last year, so on lots of people's best reads of the year. But yeah, this one, I know this was an early one as well. I think it's the second book that she released. Oh, it's over 10 years old, this book. So, you know, I'm glad I read it. Like, it was fine. I just didn't connect with it a ton. I liked, Lauren has a sister, Rachel. I did like the discussion of her feeling pressured to get married or to have a relationship and to have kids, and she like not really wanting that. And generally the family dynamics were interesting, but I don't know, not enough for me to rave about this book, basically. So that's After I Do. Next I'm going to read Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which I managed to get from the library. This is a book about a cafe where you can travel back in time. I have started it. It's intriguing, not sure what I think yet. It's definitely going to be different to After I Do. Yeah, no, happy to keep reading. Also, just as an aside, on the English version, there's a cat, and I've noticed that on Japanese books translated into English, they love to put a cat on it, and I don't think there's a cat in this book. I don't know. I think it's cheeky. If you look at the cover on the Japanese version, the cat isn't there. I don't know. I don't need to be lured into a book. Like, I like cats, but I feel like it's false advertising if there's no cat in the book. I'll check in with you either at the end or when I've gotten a bit more of the way through. I finished Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Do not be fooled. Do not be fooled by what you might consider as a nice twee cutesy cover. This is a sad book. I cried. I mean, I cried pretty easy, I'd say, but like, still. Do check the warnings before you pick this one up. If you have any topics that you don't want to read about, there's death in this, and yeah, it got me good. Not sure whether because there's quite a few books in this series. I feel like I shouldn't continue in it because I didn't enjoy it enough to warrant it, but sometimes I just get sucked into series because even though I'm not that attached to the story, I am attached to the characters. I'm not sure if all the characters will stay the same, but I imagine that they will because the cafe is frequented by a lot of the same people, and the same people work there, like a very small cast of characters, so I may continue. So there is a small cafe that exists in Tokyo. You can travel back in time, but there are some interesting caveats or rules that go along with that. So you have to be sitting in a specific seat in the cafe. There's a ghost there's a ghost that he's usually sat in the seat, and you can only use the seat once the ghost vacates the seat, which she does once a day. And you can only go back in time to see someone else who has been at that cafe. They have to have been in the cafe for it to work, because you're going back in time, you're going to be sat in the same seat, you can't leave the seat, and you need to go back to a time when the person that you want to see was in the cafe. So that you can talk to them. I kind of liked that as a quirk because it means that this is, well, it talks about how the fact that you could do this was like picked up by the press, and but people lost interest when they realised that they couldn't visit anyone who hadn't visited the cafe. So I think it's interesting because it stops it being like this big tourist trap, and it is something like just for the community that have this connection to the cafe, which I thought was really, really interesting and nice, and kept it kind of with that community feeling. But there were some things, like obviously not like science fiction, it's not going to be like explaining the magic to me, but there was some bits where I was questioning it, because for example, one person goes back and brings back an object from that time. Part of the rule is that you can never change the present. Whatever you do when you go back, you can never change the present. But one person goes back for an object and brings back an object into the present. And I'm thinking, well, that is kind of changing the present then, isn't it? And if you could do that, then why, if you could do that with an object, then why not with a person? Like maybe if you're holding a person, then you could come back. And I was like bargaining with the book basically. No, please. I mean, I guess like if you're somebody who questions, who wants there to be like a strong, even like for me, I'm not someone who's like, oh, how does this work? I don't like it because it wouldn't happen in real life. Like, I mean, I know this is magical realism, so I'm not expecting it to be realistic, but I do want the internal logic to work, and I felt like it was a bit that it didn't work. But I understand that in order to make the story work, you kind of have to make these decisions, and I don't know, but I guess it just took me out of the story a little bit. Yeah, I didn't fall in love with it because so there's, how many stories are there? 3 or 4? 4, yeah. So there's 4 stories, so 4 occasions when people are travelling in time through the chair. And the first one is very, well, compared to the others, is more lighthearted. And so when after that first story, when we got into the next few, it was just quite like a drop in tone in terms of like light-hearted to heavy-hearted. I thought that sort of pitching, like the tone was sort of everywhere, and I felt sort of like I wasn't prepared for it. It was more intense than I was expecting, and I guess I like to know how intense a book is before I get into it. Is that fair to say? I'm not sure if I've ever picked up a book thinking it was going to be light-hearted. Then it's more serious and more serious and sad of a book. And then thought that but that's okay. I guess I like to know what I'm going in for. Do you feel the same way? Has there ever been a time where that's happened to you, where you thought it didn't take away from your enjoyment of the book? I'd be really intrigued to know. If I'd have gone into this knowing that it was going to be a sad story, I think I would have been less likely to pick it up. So maybe it's that like that's just not where my head is right now. So maybe it just didn't grab me in the right place in my life. I think I could imagine coming to this at a more sad place in my life. Yeah, as like a story to kind of go through my grief with. I don't think it's a bad book by any means, but yeah, it just didn't hit me at the right time is what I think is going on here. So that's Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I'm not sure if I mentioned the author, Toshikazu Kawaguchi, with the translator, Geoffrey Trousselot. Trousselot. I'm not sure. Maybe if I take lots of different takes and then I can look up which one is correct and then cut out all the rest. Nailed it. So my next read today is the 30th of January, and I was hoping to post this in January to match so that the video matches the month. Who knows? Who knows if I'm going to do that. So I'm only going to read one more book to match the graphic part of the prompt. And so out of Someone You Can Build a Nest In and Lucky Day, I'm just going to pick the shortest one, and the shortest one is Lucky Day. So yes, I'm going to start that today, hopefully finish it and finish this video and upload it tomorrow. Fingers crossed. Yeah, catch you in the next clip. I'm just over halfway through on Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle, and I'm really excited. I'm really enjoying it. I'm getting a lot more than I bargained for in terms of, I feel like the genre, so on StoryGraph it says that the genre is horror. I knew that it was going to open up with a horrific event, but in fact I feel like this book is a blend of like science fiction and mystery, as well as horror, and yeah, I'm really enjoying all of that. It's also talking to the book that I just read, Before the Coffee Gets Cold. So in Lucky Day we have the main character who is a statistics and probability expert, and she's just about to release a book. Things in her life are going pretty well. She's bisexual. Her relationship with her mother is not that great, so we're opening up on this kind of a normal, like, you know, everyday individual circumstances, and then this horrific event happens which is kind of too absurd. The event is too absurd for it to land in your body in like any way than kind of a comedy. I guess, because things are happening, the things that are happening, sure, for the main character are horrific, but as the reader just come across as so unlikely that it's hard to connect with it on that level. It's more like, wow, this is some real out there stuff that's happening. So like, for example, fish start raining from the sky, and then all these car accidents happen, and there's giant monkeys or chimpanzees coming to kill people, and some more like weird stuff that I'm not sure is safe to say on YouTube. So unbelievable that it's actually hard to be horrified by it. Although I'm sure if this were made into a movie, then yes, it would be horrifying to look at. But for me, my brain is like imagining this and not really, being horrified by it. That's how it starts. And then because the main character
her whole career has been based on like being able to predict things well, like knowing how unlikely an event happens. And so when this happens and it goes on to be called the low probability event, she completely kind of checks out of society and kind of goes into a depression. A little later on in the novel, it becomes about trying to figure out what happened and why it happened. So that's where I am now. And the main character, gosh, I don't know if she's been named. Does she have a name? Vera. Yes, Vera. So she mentions this idea of historical inertia. And historical inertia is the idea that, even as I understood it, is that no matter if you could go back in the past and change something, like if someone went back into the past to save JFK's life, is the example she gives. The only change with that would be that the shooting would have happened a few days later, or someone else would have shot him a few days later, that he would have died anyway. And there's a passage in Before the Coffee Gets Cold where it says that even if someone went back used the chair to go back in time to kill someone, if they wanted to do that, then what would happen is that it would all pan out so that that person's life could be saved. And when I was reading that in Before the Coffee Gets Cold, I was like, okay, yeah, but like even if you survive like being shot or like having someone try and kill you is a really traumatic event, surely that would affect your life. Like your life would be so different from having gone through that event. And so I was like scratching my head, like that doesn't go along with this idea that nothing in the present would change, like that was described in Before the Coffee Gets Cold. But that is the idea, like this historical inertia. That is kind of the same idea that's being presented to me in Lucky Day. And yeah, I don't know, this is new to me. Like maybe if you read a lot of time travel or science fiction, like maybe this isn't new to you at all, but I just found that really interesting that these books were talking to each other in a way that I that I didn't expect. Yeah, I guess because I don't read a lot of, like, definitely not a lot of time travel and not a lot of science fiction. I haven't, although I am intrigued to read more. Like the reason I was drawn to Before the Coffee Gets Cold is because it's such a famous book, and it's translated from the Japanese, and I'm living in Japan. And the reason that I was attracted to Lucky Day is because the main character works in probability and statistics, which happens to be interesting to me. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It feels kind of magical how they're talking to each other through me in this vlog. Maybe I'm enjoying Lucky Day more for the fact that I'm reading it just after reading Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Yeah, I'm really, really intrigued to see if they come up with the explanation for the low probability event. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it more than I thought I would. Like after the description of the low probability event, which is right at the very beginning, I was like, oh, I'm not sure. I think maybe I picked this up for a tenuous reason that like maybe I'm not really going to enjoy this. But now I'm really, now that I know that we're trying to explain it, I'm very intrigued. I'll probably check in with you at the end unless something wild happens that I want to check in before. Yeah, so really enjoying it. Okay, the sun is setting here in Tokyo, and I've just finished Lucky Day. And having finished it, I finish it less excited than I was when I was in the middle of it. There's something that happens at the end where there's a resistance within me that happened, you know. Like, but when I think it through, it's like, yes, that character may have done that, probably would have done that, but there's a resistance within me, like, no, they wouldn't have done that. Even though I can see that there's like good reasoning and trying to keep this vague. The philosophy. I always struggle when there's an attempt made to justify, well, I don't know, that's how it comes across to me, like we need to justify all this terrible stuff that's happened. In this book, it's all of this weird, absurd stuff that's happened, and in real life, terrible stuff happens all the time, right? And within this book, there's this effort to justify it. That's not quite right, but I guess to be able to live with it. The main character is struggling within this new world and needs to come up with a way of being content, I guess. Like at the beginning, she has this nihilist outlook, and towards the end she's rejecting that. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm not solid enough in what my own philosophy is to properly talk through why it didn't land for me the ways in which she did that for herself. I guess maybe because it seems like, oh, by noticing the beauty, that means that you're justifying the bad things that happen. But is that true? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's like, well, yes, good things happen and bad things happen, but it doesn't mean that when you appreciate the good things that are happening that you're saying then that it's the worth all the terrible things. It's just like, well, everything's happening, so we might as well enjoy the good while we have it. We might as well enjoy the good that we have. I don't know. I leave this book a little ambivalent, I guess. I would love a review of this book that looks at the scientific reasonings that it's giving in its plot. I would love like a deeper dive. If someone with a more scientific background than I could do like a deep dive into what is going on in that realm of it when it comes to this book. I'd be so interested to read or to listen to that review. Gosh, it was a ride. I don't regret picking it up. It was definitely interesting, and I think I'm gonna let this one sit and maybe think more about the new things that it brought up and try and piece things together for myself. Maybe I guess if anything comes of that, I'll put it in a wrap-up video because I want to get this up as soon as possible. That's the end of this vlog. Will I continue? My intention is definitely to do this next month as well, because it's been so interesting finding the prompts and like how the books are interacting with each other as well, which I didn't anticipate. I don't have in my head what February's prompts are, but going to look up what they are and then finding the next books to read. I'm feeling excited about that. So I think this is putting me in a good sort of reading momentum in whatever the opposite of a reading slump is. A reading hump? No, that sounds similar. That sounds like a bad thing, maybe. A reading, I don't know, bounty? I don't know. Comment below. Let me know if you're taking part in the Buzzword Readathon, what you read if you are taking part, what you've read so far. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read in this vlog, or if I've piqued your interest to read them. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. As always, like and subscribe if you fancy, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye!